Okay, so we're going to talk about explaining evidence and how we explain what you're thinking. It's really important that we do this and we do this well, because when we want to get our point across, we have to be able to explain it clearly and so that somebody else can understand where we're coming from. It's explaining an inference, really, is what it comes down to. So let's go through the different steps that we would go to explain some good evidence. So first, some things to remember. We always want to tell what you are thinking and how you see those connections. You're always going to tell what you're thinking. We're always going to tell what parts of the evidence that cause you to see that connection. There are some parts of the evidence that make us think about things, and those words or phrases, those are the connections that we want. Additionally, we're going to tell the reason that we see that connection, the reason that that evidence really does answer the question that we're looking at. If we can't tell a reason, then we don't know why you're doing that. Some things to remember not to do. We do not do this. We do not say, the text says it, or, oh, it says the words in the text, or it shows, and you tell exactly what your answer in the text. That's not going to work. It doesn't explain anything. It just tells me what you've already told me. The text already says that. I get it. I want to know what your thoughts are. So we don't say the text says it. We don't say anything about how the words in the text say it. We are just going to tell our thinking. We're going to explain our thoughts here and the connections to bridge this gap between what you know and think and what I see on paper. So let's take a look at some examples here on the ICE paragraphs. My example comes from To Build a Fire from Jack London. Now the question I asked was, why did the dog not stop the man from going out in the cold, this negative 75-degree weather? Why did the dog not stop him? I mean, the dog, honestly, if we're reading the story, he didn't want to go, but he didn't show any apprehension to the man. So why? So I have to think about that. I give my answer as the dog was just scared of the man. Simply put, the dog was very scared of the man. And you might ask, well, prove it. Prove why the dog was scared of the man. I'm like, okay, I'll give you some evidence. Here's my evidence. My evidence is that the only caresses it had ever received were the caresses of the whiplash and the harsh and menacing throat sounds that threatened the whiplash. That's the evidence I have to prove that the dog was scared of the man. But I can't just leave it there, because you might be like, well, Mr. Bitter, that doesn't make any sense. Explain it to me. How does that evidence right here, how does this evidence really show your answer? Prove it. Oh, I just did. I gave evidence. No, you need to explain it. So let's explain how this works. Okay, so here's how we do an explanation. Explanation contains different things. It needs to tell how the evidence answers the question. It needs to tell why this piece of evidence answers the question. And it needs to show the connections between what you said and what you think and what the text actually says. Connections between what you think and what this right here says in the evidence. So let's take a look and let's actually explain our evidence. So let's talk about how, why, and how to show connections within our explanation. So to begin, how? Here's my evidence. Again, we always have to reference the evidence, so I've got it up here at the top. How does the evidence show my answer? That's my question. What is this question actually asking us? Well, it's asking us what part or parts of the evidence, what part, words or phrases in here, or the story, shows that your answer, or my answer here is the dog is scared of the man, to the question. So what parts in here show my answer? If I think about that, remember, how is giving a process. So I'm thinking of what things in here kind of help me think of and come to the conclusion. So here's my answer here. The only touch or physical care the dog ever received was a violent hitting and beatings. The way I got this was the idea of a whiplash, the whip. Oh, look, I've got whip here, okay? Oh, and up here, I've got the whiplash and whiplash in the evidence. There's where it comes from. Oh, and the mean way the man spoke. If I look at the mean way the man spoke, I've rephrased the idea of the menacing throat sound, which is an idea of mean speaking or yelling. Okay? And the way he did that shows this violence. If somebody's whipping, somebody's doing these mean sounds, they're probably pretty violent. That's my thinking there. Okay? I've given my idea first, and then I kind of explain where it came from. This was done in 2 sentences. You can do it in 1 if you'd like. Let's take a look at the next one of why and what why does in our explanation. So why, again, here's our evidence. Why does the evidence show my answer? Again, this is asking us what reason. Remember, why asks for a reason. What reason does the evidence or part of the story show that my answer to the question is right? So what? Give me a reason. That's what I'm asking for. So give me the reason why this evidence is showing that this is right or wrong. Here's my reason. The reason is the beatings that the dog had made it scared to do anything against what the man told it. Does that make sense? If someone gets beat or gets hurt by somebody else, are they going to be scared to do something for that person later? Probably. Some people, maybe not, but for a lot of people, and animals especially, if they get beat, they get scared to do something. So, it makes sense that if he's getting beat, the reason why he's scared is because he's getting beat, and he doesn't want to do anything to get hurt. So now let's draw some connections. These are the ideas where we take the how and the why, and we pull them together from what the text says into what we understand. So, I'm asking you to show a connection between your thoughts and the evidence. In other words, what were you thinking when you saw the evidence? Okay? What background knowledge does it connect to? What was your thought process? Here's what I have said. Because the dog is getting beat, because the dog is getting hurt and it's scared and doesn't want to get hurt, I've said the dog wants to keep itself safe from harm. So, it does not stop the man from going out in the negative temperatures. Right? If the dog wants to keep itself safe from harm, it doesn't want to go against its master and get beat, it's going to just go out in the negative temperatures without saying anything. So the reason why he let the man go is because it did not want to get hurt. And I've explained how that works. So my thinking is now explained on paper, and I can see the connections here. Let's take a look here and see how this all comes together. Remember ICE. I-C-E. Introduction. We introduce, answer our question, introduce the ideas that we're talking about. We're going to cite our evidence. C. E is our explanation. We're going to explain our thinking. Let's take a look. Here's our introduction. I took the answer and I made it into a complete introduction, a complete sentence with multiple ideas. For instance, the dog did not stop the man from going into the cold. Oh, I've restated the question. Because, here's the reasoning, it was frightened the man would hurt and not feed it. Now I need evidence. Here's my evidence that shows that. Notice I am transitioning into my evidence here. This is shown when the narrator says the only caresses it had ever received were the caresses of the whiplash and of the harsh, menacing throat sounds that threatened the whiplash. Okay? Does this connect to here? Yeah. Hurt, whiplash, and this idea of being frightened with menacing throat sounds, this all connects. Next, we need our explanation. With all 3 of those questions of why, how, and the connections, showing the connections, I put all of those answers together, and this is what came up. We have the only physical touch and care the dog had ever received was violent hitting and beatings. The idea of the whip and the mean way the man spoke to the dog shows this violence. The beatings that the dog had made it scared to do anything against what the man told it. The dog wants to keep itself safe from harm, so it does not stop the man from going out into the negative temperatures. Does that explain how this evidence answers the question? Yes, it does. This right here is an advanced example of how to introduce, cite, and explain. If you were to put these 3 things together and make sure there are transitions between them, you have a paragraph. So this is how we are going to be putting together our ICE and how we will explain our thinking on a piece of evidence and how it answers the question.